Hi, this is Cherry Davis, and I'm talking with Djaka Souaré, who is one of the former mentors with the Start with a Hollywood. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I am fine. I'm so excited. You are my very first interview, and
Yay.
I am just ecstatic with what Women of Color United Start with a Hollywood has done to get more connection, more mentoring, and just helping women of color speak their truths and break the doors down for Hollywood.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, I am very curious about what was your inspiration for your career path as a writer, director, and actress?
So I was born and raised in France, in Paris, from a Caucasian mother and a West African father who was a model, actor, screenwriter. So I could not omit that my inspiration definitely comes from him and from being raised in a very artistic household with a deep love for American cinema, old school studio movies and franchises. So probably from there and from that part, I was thrown on stage when I was about 6 or 7 years old. So I started my career as a stage actress with classical theater very early on. And then I moved to dancing and singing. So I did the whole musical thing, total musical theater geek. And then I transitioned to film and TV. I did that in France, I did that in Hong Kong and in New York, where I had the opportunity to start producing. So I was a producer and developed films for a production company for about 3 years before I give myself permission to direct. So that's when I started directing, and that was about 3 years ago.
I read your bio and I thought it was fascinating that at a very young age you found your voice and wrote a play that got to tour.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have my Oscar speech since I was 6. It's ridiculous, really. But yeah, I started creating content quite early for the very reason, well, two main reasons why that I was raised in books. So I read a lot and I started writing dreadful songs when I was a teenager. And so I went on to write that play when I was about 20 years old, I believe, or a bit older. But also for the lack of opportunities that came my way. We have that issue here in the States. Unfortunately, it's quite worldwide. So even in France and Europe, you get tired of going to audition for the roles of maid, cops, prostitute, model. Like, there'll be one and that's it. I remember one of my first audition, the casting director told me, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we already have a black person in the show." So that when that becomes an everyday, you understand the power that you have if you start creating your own content.
It's why I'm so excited about Women of Color Unite and their Start with a Hollywood Mentor Program. How did you learn about it?
So funny enough, a Sunday morning, very early, my first short film is called Jazz in Wakanda, and it's the story of a mother and a daughter, spending a day in Harlem. I absolutely love. I spent a lot of time in Harlem and New York, and love that community, and wanted to give back to them. And I set my first film there. It did really well on the festival circuit. It opened at Harlem Film Festival and Urban World. And I got in a film festival here in LA that is called Black Muslim Girl Fly. And Cheryl Bedford, who is at the head of the JTC list and Women of Color Unite, was part of the festival. I think she was a judge, but she was also a panelist, and she also won. They gave her a prize that day. So a Sunday morning, where the films were screening, I went and I won Best Short Film. So I was so happy, and I met all of the panelists. It was an amazing Sunday morning in close to Limerick Park, I believe, and yeah, I met Cheryl and she told me what she was about and what she was doing. She was so full of energy as she is, and she was so funny and just, a go-getter. Like, you don't meet a lot of people who are so honest about what is happening in the industry in that sense, and uh, are not scared to voice and to use their voices. And so she was one of those wonderful women that I met that morning, and she told me about it. So I joined. I think as soon as I got home, I tried to join the list when I heard what it was.
She and Thuk Nguyen and so many others work tirelessly on the programs. And it is so important because often women of color don't have family or friends or contacts. And so with this mentorship program, I'm curious how you found navigating Hollywood or the entertainment industry since you've lived overseas on your own.
Well, very difficult, really. I think that I hoped that I would have learned years ago that my lateral networking would be so much more important than thinking only upward, because the minute that you really find a community that you can rely on, then it becomes a total different game, because just it could be financially, but mentally you're starting to be assisted and supported in your endeavors, and that changes everything because you don't feel like you're alone anymore. So to find that community, being part of lists like the JTC list is so important. And the minute that you are trying to make a project and bring it to life, you suddenly have a whole support system that you can rely on, and you can collaborate with people that probably have the same vision as you, because they're on that same level in the industry as well. So alone, I would say it's almost impossible. Those communities that if you're privileged and you have the chance, sometimes you usually find in schools, like NYU or Tisch or all of the schools in the country and overseas. You can find those in drama schools as well. But those lists allow to build a community that has so much value.
I'm very excited about it. And I really want to dig into the WOCU, Start With 8 Hollywood Mentorship Program. Now, when you first applied, did you focus more on your being an actor, or you're being a writer or a director? Since you're a bit of a Renaissance woman, you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, I do wear a lot of hats, but I feel like for women in particular, it's like a second nature. Like, you got to do it all. Try to see, one door or another is going to give. Something's got to give. So what happened when they started launching that program, I immediately submitted my application. And where they make potentially a difference, they're so smart, is that look at you wholly. And so, I'm always going to say that I'm an actress first, because that's who I am, but I'm also a director, and I'm also a producer, because guess what? I had to produce all the things that I did anyway. So, and I had also a little bit of a career with a bigger production company. So they looked at me wholly, and they gave me two mentors. So, like they didn't push me in a box or another, which often in the industry or in life in general, people like to know what you do. It's like one thing. It's like, no, it's impossible. Actually, there's a lot of things that I love, and they all come together in a logical way. So they gave me two mentors, and one was a producer, Jessica Hargrave, who produced wonderful documentaries, because I came from the documentary world as a producer. She produced The Keepers on Netflix. She just released a film at Sundance. And then they also gave me a mentor, Davida Chanel Smith, who's a manager. So I had one that, I could talk about my producing and what I was developing, and we just started an amazing relationship with. And another person that was, more towards my acting life. And the wonderful thing with those two mentors is that that Jessica immediately told me, this is not going to be a one thing. For me, this is a relationship that I'm opening with you. And, let's see where it leads us. But I am always there. Now we know each other. All I needed was the Women of Color Unite Start with 8 Hollywood program in order to know women of color and to know you. And for me, this is a lifetime thing. So that was just wonderful. And Davida, who's a manager, a wonderful manager, I thought I would talk to her about, because I didn't have a manager at the time. I just arrived, moved to LA from New York, and I didn't have an agent either, which I still don't have. But we talked about what, in which way I could try to find somebody that would be the greatest fit for me. And at the end of the conversation, she said, well, why don't I pitch myself? Because I'm very interested in what you do. And I've looked at what you do and everything. And then we decided to work together. So out of this program, I actually get a manager, and I'm working with her now. She's a wonderful woman of color. And I'm really, happy to be with her and grateful. So that's how it went for me. And that's quite amazing, especially during that year of pandemic where, everybody needed some wins here and there. That was definitely a big win in my year.
That is great, because I hear so much about similar programs where they limit it to 2 or 5 people that get to have mentors, or they're charging some sort of fee since it's a contest. And I love the fact that WOCU does not charge any fees to the women of color that get to participate, as well as their networking site website that I am a member of, and I believe you're a member of as well.
Oh yeah. Oh, amazing. Absolutely. I know Cheryl doesn't believe in charging fees, and why would she? Honestly, it's like, yeah, we come from those spaces where we have trouble evolving financially and just sustaining ourselves, and we're going to pay a fee to try to get somewhere. It really doesn't make sense. And yet that's what happens all the time. So it's just wonderful. And the work they do in pairing people in a smart way, I thought was wonderful. And a lot of people high up people in the industry answered in a positive way. And, it's like, okay, you're almost touching the dream. You get to ask questions to people who are really working and really serious and occupying serious positions.
I'm very curious, what did you learn from Jessica, and what did you learn from Davida? Since one is one's a producer and one is a manager, and so they're able to give you 2 sides of the same coin almost.
Yeah, absolutely. From Jessica, I keep on learning things, and it's really more about a relationship. So Jessica did, I don't know, she made me feel really good because, for example, for Christmas, she decided to take all of her mentees, and she asked us that she was going to make a donation to Brown, what's the Brown Girls Mafia doc, and and we all are familiar with that brand, and they're amazing. And she bought us some tote bags and some t-shirts, and I thought it was just a great gesture. And in terms of what she gave me, it's more the relationship that we have. It's talks that we have. I'm just pitching a project right now, and I needed some help, and I asked her for some help, and she gave me the help. And she also organized a Zoom with the head of development and the new head of company of Priyanka Chopra. She's a friend of hers, and she invited all of her mentee to have an hour Zoom with Mary Rockley, and it was just absolutely wonderful. And that was way down the line of us starting to meet each other, or even it feels like, okay, then the end of the program is there. It's happened, it's over, but yet it's not over for Jessica. So that's one thing. And with Davida, I mean, I moved from New York to LA right before the pandemic, and I was doing a lot of acting classes because I just wanted to get back into the grit of things, and I didn't want to look for an agent right away or a manager right away, and it just fell into my lap with Start with 8 Hollywood. I was like, okay, so I guess it's time. I'll ask Davida some questions about what I should look for, who should I look for, and And when we started working together, she gave me my first audition for a huge network TV. So I couldn't be more grateful. And she's, always keeping in touch and telling me, okay, this is a time because of COVID and everything, things are a bit slow, but we're going to get moving soon. So those are really amazing relationships.
I'm very curious about the relationship you have with them, because it sounds like you interact not simply with your mentor, but with the fellow mentees. So you have a whole new network from the
A
program.
whole new network. That is so important as well. So all the girls that Jessica was mentoring, we got to know each other. She made that happen. So she organized a Zoom for all of us to meet. And I met with some of those girls I'm closer to, and we started holding clubhouse rooms together and talking about diversity and inclusion, and just that's what I talk about when I talk the support system. It's like, you have a little board in front of your in your mind, and I have probably 10 around me right now, where you have names of people that you could collaborate to, or you put them under your projects here and there, and that community will rise up with you potentially. So that is everything.
That is everything, because I hear so often about directors who cast their friends in movies for no reason other than that's my buddy.
No, but when you look at even all the, the amazing respected directors and everything, you see Scorsese and De Niro, and yeah, there were kids around the table around New York, and he was making the film, and he was like, well, this is great, and I'm going to cast him. And it's all friends making art together. So absolutely, I agree 100% on that.
Sadly, most of us do not have those friends, which is why we do not get those roles.
Yeah.
Now, what did you find to be some of the best advice you've gotten from working with the two mentors, or even from the other mentees, since all of you are on different paths?
Advice, I'd say, from Jessica, it's such an exchange that I would have trouble pointing out anything. From Davida, absolutely, like, so important. She gives me the temperature of where the industry is at in terms of auditions, and so she's pushed me to do things that I didn't necessarily thought were possible right away. I directed 2 short films, and she pushed me to get a director's reel and to make a director's reel. And I was like, but I only have 2 short films. She's like, I don't care. And by the time I did, I shot 2 music videos. So suddenly I had more things. So she pushes me. She kicks my ass in that way, which is great, because again, as a community, as a person, you're so alone. You don't have any blueprint for that industry, right? You're trying to see what's gonna give, which direction, what should I do today? You need to be really disciplined. So the minute that you have somebody from a community or somebody that you're working with that can actually lift you up by pushing you forward, by giving you that self-confidence that some days you might not have, or that energy that some days you might not have, just working together, and that's the reciprocal as well. But yeah, from Davida, just giving me a temperature of what the moves that we should be making, and I feel like I'm working with somebody. That she's not working for me, I'm not working for her, we're working together.
Now, how has the mentoring program, or should I say your two mentors, help you navigate Hollywood in this new normal during COVID-19?
Well, I'm going to jump to Davida straight away. We're looking at some point for an agent, and I wasn't sure. A lot of people were getting furloughed, were getting fired during the pandemic. So I didn't think that it was the best time to move forward. But at some point I was getting a bit antsy, and I was like, maybe, and she was like, not yet. So that's where the relationship is very important. Again, she knows things on her end and that I don't, and she gives me a temperature of where what I should do, the moves that I should do. So right now, where I need new headshots, that whole talk with that you should have you with your manager. But that's something that I'm very grateful for.
Now, I'm very curious, at the start of your mentorship with Start with 8 Hollywood versus now, how is that sort of changing your mindset and how you look at moving forward as a director, since you were saying that they've given you some really good advice? And I'm not sure if you've had any other previous mentors, especially in such a structured manner.
Yeah, so actually this year I've been lucky enough to get into 3 mentorship programs. So that was a huge win. Start with 8 Hollywood was wonderful. And I also applied for their second round because they said that it was possible. If they find enough mentors and mentees that can get matched, why not? That wasn't the case, and they definitely gave first dibs to the people that hadn't been part of the first round. But I did try, and I'll keep on trying, just because in case they have somebody who's looking to have more mentees or anything, like, I am down. I'm always looking to meet new people, especially right now that we're like missing human connection. And since you never know where it's going to come from in this industry, you might as well, meet as many people as you can and be kind to them. So that's that. And in terms of, so I got into another mentorship program, which was Now Media. And my mentor was Amanda Seals, the actress and multi-hyphenate artist that she is. She's recurring in Insecure. And we had about 3 meetings together, and she was great. And she helped me also with some of the things that I am developing. And I'm finessing it a bit, and I need to send a deck of something to her again because she offered to pass it on to somebody she knows. So that's amazing. And then the third one that I got in, the first one in the year, was the Women in Film Mentoring Program. And as a multi-hyphenate as well, I am part of a group of wonderful female artists and filmmakers, actresses, directors, producer, comedian. We just had a watch party 2 nights ago. We meet regularly through Zoom, and we just, update each other on what we're doing, because we know we're never going to know where it's coming from. Our mentors are Joanna Johnson, who is an actress and showrunner for Good Trouble, and director and producer and so many other things, and Tiffany Dupont, who's an actress that just got a series regular on the new Kevin Costner TV show. Woo-hoo. So yeah, I'm super happy for her. Wonderful human beings as well. Overall, my experience has been just really freaking awesome. So I've been really lucky.
And talented. I had a chance to look at a couple of your reels, and I really liked the one where you were buying ice cream for your child. That was really neat. And then I saw a couple of your other projects, and they run the gamut, showing from drama to comedy, which I think is one of my favorite things. And I'm very curious, because you moved here from Europe, and I assume that entertainment is global. So I'm sure you saw American entertainment, Japanese entertainment. What was some of the favorite movies and TV shows that you grew up, that you said to yourself, I want to make something not exactly like that, but I want to see my story on TV or on the movies?
Yeah. Wow. That's such a loaded question. But thank you, first of all. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and thank you for your compliments. I really appreciate it. As a starting filmmaker, I'm so eager to develop and just tell stories. Storytelling is everywhere all the time. I think reading a lot of books informed me of that, and watching a lot of old movies, old and new, but my parents grew up a lot with American and international cinema. Weirdly, not so much with French cinema. I guess when something is so close to home, you just try to reach out somewhere else. But some of the movies that I was raised with are classics. But my especially my father had a collection of VHS that was very that I still have somewhere. I wouldn't even know how to watch them anymore. But it was very precise with his choices. So he could have, he had Casablanca, of course, that I saw really early on, and Who's Coming to Dinner. Like he had all the Sidney Poitier. He worshipped Sydney in so many ways. And then as movies, I would say Lost Cargo is Humphrey Bogart and John Crawford, all the Cassavetes, Gina Rowlands, Gilda with Rita Hayworth. I am old school. And then just to kind of break that rhythm, that pattern, I'm going to say, Die Hard, Bruce Willis. Like we were just very adamant about watching the best of each genre, I would say. I just watched Coming to America too yesterday night. Coming to America was, as a comedy, it was like top 5 for sure. So I grew up with that. I did grow up with, French movies as well. I grew up with a bit of African cinema as well. And there was such a rise, I think, in the 90s of African cinema that I tried to catch up with when I was a bit, old enough to watch them. But the Asian cinema came and kicked everybody's ass, the Wong Kar-wai, and at some point. So it's just so interesting to try to have a bit of an array, try to get a bit of a taste of everything. And that's what I feel is lacking sometimes in the US. In Europe, we go to our cinema in the corner, like our local cinema, and we watch the last Pedro Almodovar, who is the #1 Spanish director. As it comes out, it's like an event. And it's not a Marvel, and Marvel can be an event. And I'm all for being a Black Panther in 2 years, but it's just, I wish for people to open their choices of movies, because that's going to open their minds.
I do agree. I think it's so important that people walk in another person's footsteps, and the best way to do that is through TV or film. And that we're allowed to have more independent creators, women of color, LGBTQ, pretty much everyone, instead of just constant white guys and then a few Black men.
I agree.
But I'm a total movie geek, so I'm all about my little Marvel movies and DC movies as well.
Yeah.
Now, as someone who is a director and a writer, are there any scripts that you think to yourself, I have to have this as my script Bible as I write my projects?
Oh, that's interesting. You mean in terms of feature length script or TV?
Feature film and TV, because there's some TV shows that I personally can watch over and over again and get something new out of it, because the writing is so good and true to itself. Ditto for some movies. Some I'm a one and done, and I'll watch it once and I'll enjoy it, but it doesn't connect. Sometimes I'll even watch a show and the series finale will be so bad that it leaves a taste in my mouth and I no longer love the show anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm particular.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm so particular and I'm so passionate about it that I can get really defensive or, about projects. Okay, so I do have Casablanca and I do have Die Hard on my desktop as a script. I think I have The Godfather 2 as well, because I'm developing a script that, as a writer, will potentially have the same structure in terms of flashback as we see Vito Corleone, back in Italy at the beginning, and then we see his father, who's the godfather in New York, and like the juxtaposition of it. So I'm thinking about that structure for my first feature film that I'm developing. I do have, for more current projects, I do have the Handmaid's Tale pilot episode, because I absolutely love the voice. And I do, even if it's frowned upon, I do like voiceovers. Like June is talking to herself, and you can hear her. So I do like that, and I love that pilot. I love how it starts. You get straight into it. I love it. And that this year, I am obsessed with Emerald Fennell, who is the director for Promising Young Women. And I'm lucky enough to know my friend, the editor, Frédéric Toraval, is French. He's a working editor here in LA. And we've talked a lot about the film together. I absolutely love Emerald's voice. I admire her as a person, as a human being. She was, she's Camilla Parker Bowles in The Crown. She was the showrunner for Killing Eve, which is one of my favorite shows. And she did her first feature where she was 8 months pregnant, did Promising Young Woman, which I absolutely love this year. So I have that script on my desktop right now, and I started reading it, and I laughed. Just the first scene, her voice, I laughed for about 10 minutes, and I just keep rereading that first scene, and I just have to move on. But basically it starts with depressing dance floor on a Thursday or something like that. And she has such a precise voice that I absolutely love that. So those films, I would like to get, Parasite, of course, the script. And this year, I think I would like to, one of my favorite films this year is definitely The U.S. versus Billie Holiday. I grew up with jazz, obsessed with music. I'm a jazz singer. So that broke my heart and lifted me and fulfilled me in so many ways. And I thought Shaka King and the brothers and did a fantastic job in the script of Judas and the Black Messiah as well. So those are two that would be on my list as well.
So Djaka, it sounds like you're working on your first feature script film. What do you think is your particular voice as a writer and director?
Yeah, so I'm developing several things at the same time because, well, you have to. But my first feature is the story of my father juxtaposed with mine. So basically, my father was a African immigrant from Guinea-Conakry who was a closed country. You weren't supposed to leave the country, but he left. And he went to Dakar and Senegal and boarded the boat to Marseille. From Marseille, he lived the immigrant life in France and met my mother in Lyon. And they were one of the first multi-racial, biracial couple. My voice is definitely the voice of the underground, the underdog, the voice of the underdog always. People that, come out of their own situation, have to just try to rise to the occasion, that usually come from nothing or not much and have to go against all odds to make it. That hero's journey is definitely something that I absolutely relate to in so many ways. And so that means that it's the immigrant story, it's the women's story, it's the multicultural story. I do have a focus on being from, I don't like biracial, I say multicultural because I think that race is something that's been created to be utilized against us as a term. And I think that celebrating culture is something that we should actually put the emphasis on. So as being, a mixed person being raised in a white country with a very strong attachment still to Africa on the second later part of her life, and having lived in Asia, in New York, in LA now. So being the stories of those underdogs, the people with different colors and tastes and smells and accents and all of that. I like that. I like to tell the stories that I have never seen before or never heard of. And there are so many of them.
There are so many, and I'm looking forward to hearing your stories on film soon. Djaka Souaré.
Thank you. Thank you, Cherry. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for talking with me about the WOCU Start With 8 Hollywood Mentorship Program and your experience.
Yes.
And I look forward to just seeing more of our stories coming out, not just from you, but from other women of color and other participants.
Absolutely. Me too. And thank you so much for the work you're doing and for, giving me space and a voice today on this beautiful Saturday morning.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.